Let me ask you something. What happens when the guy who has everything ends up with nothing? What happens when the popular kid doesn't peak into success, but quietly fades into uncertainty? What if the character you think is lucky is actually the most trapped? Steve Harrington has perfect hair, leather jacket, the confidence of someone who looks like life is already working out, the reputation, and the dearest Nancy Wheeler. So here's the real question. Why is he always losing? Why does he keep ending up alone? Why does the bravest character never get rewarded? And why do so many people see themselves in him without realizing it? I know you too see yourself there, because Steve Harrington isn't just a fan favorite. He's a warning, and once you see it, you can't unsee how much it actually sucks to be Steve Harrington. Chapter 1. The American high school myth in the US. We grow up believing a very specific story. If you're popular in high school, athletic, confident, admired, you're set. Steve starts at the very top of that pyramid. He has status, he has friends, he has Nancy Wheeler, but that kind of success is fragile because it's built on reputation, not identity. Once Steve graduates, the world doesn't care who he used to be, and Stranger Things does something brutal. When high school ends, Steve doesn't rise. He disappears. No applause, no spotlight, just silence. And that silence, that's where real adulthood begins. But now, let's talk about something which makes him our hero, the legendary character. Chapter 2. The hero without power. Steve has no destiny, no prophecy, no special abilities. So why does he keep fighting? Because courage doesn't come from confidence. It comes from responsibility. Steve fights because someone has to. That's not fantasy heroism. That's real-world bravery. Steve Harrington is one of the bravest characters on the show, and somehow he's also the least rewarded. He fights Demogorgons with a nail-studded bat, no powers, no training. He jumps into danger without hesitation, but every time Steve does the right thing, life takes something from him. Chapter 3. The hero who never wins. Every love story Steve enters ends the same way. Almost. Almost chosen. Almost enough. Almost happy. Nancy chooses someone else. He loses Nancy. He never gets the romantic ending. Robin doesn't love him that way. Every love story stops short, and the question keeps returning. What's wrong with Steve? Why does love never stay? The answer is painful, because in American storytelling, heroism is supposed to pay off. Steve proves that it doesn't always. Sometimes you do everything right and still lose. Chapter 4. The babysitter symbolism became emotional labor. No one sees somewhere along the way, Steve becomes the group's caretaker, starting with Season 2, fighting with demo dogs, then Billy for Max, and went to Upside Down Tunnel for the kids Gand in Season 3, fighting with Russians. Yes, the bloody Russians. An obvious saving Nancy with his hot and sexy car, and so on in every season. He protects the kids, drives them everywhere, puts himself between them and death, and no one asks him if he's okay. He becomes the emotional backbone of the group, the one who stays calm, cracks jokes, absorbs fear. This is a reality a lot of people relate to. Being the strong one means no one checks on you. Steve smiles through exhaustion, laughs through rejection, keeps going when he's clearly scared, and that's heavy. Chapter 5. I know you, me, and most of us are Steve Harrington. The babysitter joke isn't funny, it's symbolic. Steve becomes the caretaker before he's ready, just like millions of young adults forced into maturity too early, protecting others while still lost himself, watching friends find relationships, find careers, find direction. While he stays behind, Steve is trapped in transition, no longer the king, not yet the man. This is the most painful phase of adulthood, and Stranger Things lets Steve live in it, without shortcuts. Steve represents the generation raised on expectations and released into uncertainty. He is what happens when effort doesn't equal reward, when kindness doesn't guarantee love, when bravery doesn't guarantee success. That's why he resonates. This hits especially hard in modern America, where success is constantly measured and compared. Social media tells you everyone else is ahead. Steve and we feels that pressure, but, Chapter 6. Steve, the friend we all need. Steve and Dustin should never have been friends. Different age, different social circles, different worlds. At first, Steve is just helping out, but very quickly, something real forms. Steve listens to Dustin. He gives advice. Bad advice sometimes, but honest advice. He treats Dustin like an equal, not a kid, and that matters. Dustin looks up to Steve, not because Steve is cool, but because Steve shows up. He protects him. He believes him when no one else does. He never makes him feel small. In a show full of supernatural supernatural heroes, Steve becomes Dustin's real-world hero. Not perfect, just present. That's brotherhood. Now, our very own Robin Buckley. Steve's friendship with Robin Buckley might be his most mature relationship. At first, Steve thinks this is another love story, but when Robin comes out to him, the story changes. And this is where Steve truly grows. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't walk away. He doesn't make it about himself. He listens. He accepts. He stays. That moment shows us who Steve really is. For the first time, Steve isn't trying to impress someone. He's just being there. Robin becomes someone Steve can be honest with, someone who challenges him, someone who laughs at him, but still stands beside him. Their friendship proves something powerful. Steve doesn't need romance to feel connected. He needs understanding. And with the rest of the group, Mike, Lucas, Max, Erica, Steve becomes something unexpected. The protector, the driver, the shield, the one who steps forward first. No one asks him to do this. He just does. And the group trusts him because Steve never makes it about control or ego. He's not the leader. He's the one who stays behind to make sure everyone else gets out. That kind of loyalty isn't loud. It's earned. Chapter 7, the most human character. In a show filled with monsters and superpowers, most characters in Stranger Things have a direction. Eleven has her powers. Mike has leadership. Dustin has intelligence. Will is a sorcerer. Steve Harrington is painfully human. He gets scared. He messes up. He doubts himself constantly, but he still shows up. Not because he's chosen, not because he's special, but because someone has to be a performer. Yes, he is the show itself with a nailed bat and a mighty personality. Even Jonathan can't resist to save him in our very own final episode. That's what makes him relatable to an American audience. Steve represents the people who don't feel extraordinary, but still carry responsibility. People who aren't destined for greatness, yet refuse to quit. So how's it to be Steve Harrington? Conclusion, why it sucks and why it matters. So yeah, it sucks to be Steve Harrington. He doesn't get the fairy tale ending. He doesn't get the reward. He doesn't get certainty, but he grows. He becomes someone better than the guy he started as. Steve Harrington isn't a hero because he wins. He's a hero because he keeps showing up when life gives him nothing in return. And for a lot of people watching, especially in America, that struggle feels real because sometimes survival is the victory and we are the heroes of our own story. Steve Harrington proves that being a good person doesn't guarantee success, but it does make you matter. So here's a question for you. If Steve Harrington wasn't the strongest, wasn't the smartest, and wasn't the chosen one, why do we trust him the most? And be honest, who would you want standing next to you when things go wrong? Let me know in the comments. If you believe Steve Harrington deserves more credit, hit like. And if you love deep character breakdowns like this, subscribe us. More stories are coming.